75, that's a good number for this weekend. 20 is a good number for this weekend. 706, that was a good number for this weekend that we'll talk about. And I think that, well, you know what? It was a good weekend all the way around. There were a number of games that went down to the wire, a number of teams that just simply held off other teams this weekend. We're going to talk about the top 5 performances. But as always here on our Sunday night show, we try to wait to see if Josh Pate's going to get done with his Division I program. He's still talking. That's all right. So we are going on. We're going to talk NAIA football because I know that's what you are here to visit with me about, maybe just a little bit as well. So really quickly, let me give a shout out to a longtime viewer here of the channel. Jake, tough weekend, and you can't win championships if you fumble the ball. Are we foreshadowing one of the games that we're going to talk about? I think that's probably the case. Thanks for watching, Jake. I appreciate you being a part of the program tonight, and to everyone for watching us live. Thank you. It means a lot to see you guys come on. And please, again, as always, let me know from where you're watching. That's always fun to get to talk about and just, say, hey, but you know what? I've never said where I am. I should do that right now. I am actually here in what I lovingly call Studio B at the world headquarters of Emerald Quest, and we're located in Durant, Oklahoma. So if you were ever wondering about where I am, because I always ask you to tell me where you are. So I know Jake's in East Wichita, and I have a good idea where some of our regulars are, but maybe you're new to the channel. Here at Midwest Sports Net, we talk about small college sports and more throughout the Midwest and beyond. So let's go ahead and get right to it. A lot of homecoming games. There were a good number of homecoming games this weekend. One of them in Atchison, Kansas. Benedictine took care of business 31-7 in a homecoming game. Jackson Dooley went 15 for 24 through the air, 184 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So good day for Jackson Dooley. By the way, I know Benedictine has a couple of losses, and I try to show you on the Thursday night show the NAIA F-ball media poll, and I've already voted today. It won't come out till tomorrow night with the guys. Corey will get that taken care of on his channel tomorrow evening, so we try to show that then. However, I'll just let you know, I have Benedictine up there. I know they have 2 losses, but they continue to climb up the rankings as far as I'm concerned. They're a top 20 team, and I think win or lose in the Heart South, I think Benedictine is a playoff team, and I know they're going to stick around in the rankings, and they'll be a top 25 team. So just something to keep in mind. Shout out again to everyone. Again, Milton Crenshaw watching from Lake Placid, Florida. Milton, I'm old enough to remember Lake Placid, but that was the one from New York, and I do remember the Miracle on Ice, so I'm guessing the weather's a little bit warmer there. You're not going to be hosting any Winter Olympics anytime soon. Thanks, Jake, for being a part of the broadcast tonight, and for everyone else. All right, let's keep on going here. KCAC, we're not to the game Jake wants to talk about yet. I'm not sure if he really wants to talk about that game either. Avila, 35, Tabor, 10. Eli Williams, 18 for 31, 272 yards passing. He had 4 passing touchdowns. That's just enough almost to get into the top 5 tonight. No interceptions. He also had 10 carries for 27 yards. And for Tabor, Jordan Bolden, 27 carries. He was a workhorse, 174 yards rushing, 1 rushing touchdown on the day. Georgetown continues to roll, 27-3 over Faulkner. Darius Neal, 22 carries, 125 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He also had 3 receptions for 43 yards. He had 168 all-purpose yards, and we're going to talk about that again because somebody's putting up some serious total offense yards. And just to get the clarification on that so you'll know, you hear those terms, sometimes they're used interchangeably, and they're really not. It's kind of like rankings and ratings. And I know you probably heard me say ranking, not rating, when discussing the NAIA poll, and that's the truth. They're not interchangeable words. How about a team that is getting its first ever win? Thomas, I have to tell you, Charles Britt almost made our top 5 simply because Thomas picked up its first ever victory, and it was a conference victory as well. Charles Britt led the way for Thomas as the Nighthawks under Coach Orlando Mitchens in his first season with Thomas. Well, he's been there for a year, but the program just got underway. Our good friend Corey Thorpe calling those games. Thomas 38, Warner 26, Charles Britt 10 for 21 passing, 145 passing yards, had 3 passing touchdowns. was 12 for 20 or 56 rushing and a rushing touchdown as well. Warner had 6 different players throw a pass. How about that? How about that for throwing out the trick plays and getting it done? And they did what they needed to do. Morningside, 75th consecutive regular season win in a row. Let me let that sink in again, because this coming weekend, it could come to a halt on the road. But anyway, Morningside, 75th consecutive regular season win. 39-29 over Jamestown. Jamestown had a 29-24 lead in the fourth quarter. The Jimmies, who had just a couple of wins coming in, they outgained Morningside 422-387 on the day. But Morningside with the comeback. By the way, Jamestown's John Gran, 28 for 54 passing, 377 passing yards, had 3 passing touchdowns on the day. He also threw 3 interceptions as well. The junior for Jamestown, his first career touchdown pass in this game, and to do it against Morningside, big place to pick up that first passing touchdown. Morningside did utilize both quarterbacks. I know we were talking about this with Dale from the Morningside area, and Dave as well on Thursday. Dave, good to see you back again tonight. We were talking about this, which quarterback would Morningside use, and Coach Ryan decided to use both of them. Cash Parker, 10 for 15 passing, 101 passing yards, didn't have any touchdowns, had 2 picks on the day. Lennox Brown, 9 for 10 passing. Actually, he completed all 10 of his passes because one of them was to a Jamestown player. So realistically, he was 10 of 10 passing, had 1 interception there, 87 passing yards, did have a touchdown, had the pick. He also had 13 carries for 140 yards rushing, 3 rushing touchdowns, and he had a 2-point conversion as well. So he had 26 points that he was responsible for on the day. We thought that was the direction that Coach Ryan would go, was with Brown on the ground, and that is what happened. Ryan Cole also, he had receptions. Ryan Cole, this superstar running back for the Mustangs, and I don't know, Dave, if you had a chance to watch that or not, but to use Ryan Cole through the air, 3 catches, 41 yards. He had a receiving touchdown as well for Morningside. 75th consecutive regular season win. And here's what we'll talk about, I know, on Thursday night for sure. Morningside travels to Orange City, Iowa on Thursday. Someday I will get to make that game. Someday I will get to make that game. This Saturday is not going to be that Saturday. So we'll have to hopefully get to watch it a little bit. I'm sure Dave and maybe Dale get to watch that as well. Think of me when you're up there. Morningside at Northwestern on Saturday. Top 2 teams in the country. Siena Heights, 24. Concordia, 21. And Concordia from Michigan, the Cardinals, drop another game. Siena Heights led by Ethan Lopresto, 29 carries, 111 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. It's his 3rd straight game with at least 100 yards rushing and at least 1 touchdown. So props to Siena Heights there. Reinhardt, we said on Thursday we will not pick against Reinhardt the rest of this year, and we did not, and Reinhardt won. 44-17 over Point. Taylor Jackson, 14 for 30 passing, 201 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, a pick. He also had 5 carries for 14 yards and a touchdown as well. Taylor Jackson responsible for 4 TDs on the day. Reinhardt, the Eagles continue to roll. And if they do what we think they're going to do, they're in a good position for a playoff spot. Leading the way for the automatic bid for the conference championship. And if they win out through the remainder of the season, that's very much what's going to happen. We're not picking against Reinhardt again. We learned our lesson. We won't do that. Here's one that we talked about a couple of times and gave it a lot of attention. Big deal for 0-7 versus 0-7. Kentucky Christian had scored 12 points all season long through 7 games. The Knights, the Kentucky Christian Knights, that is, get 18 over the Knights from St. Andrews, 18-15. Kentucky Christian wins first game of the season. And here's the you have to think frustrating thing along the way too. Kentucky Christian gets 3 touchdowns and they can't score even when they're scoring. Failed 2-point conversion, failed point after attempt, failed point after attempt. So just the 3 touchdowns, 6 points apiece, that adds up to 18. However, it's more than all of the rest of the regular season combined. So the Knights now have 30 points. The teams combined for 390 yards of total offense on the day. Kentucky Christian, 228. St. Andrews, 162. That's 390 yards combined. There were 27 individual teams that collected more than 390 yards on the weekend other than that. Now, I know you're saying that, well, but there were some teams that were worse. You're right. I mean, there are actually a couple of teams this weekend. We'll get to those games, but 2 teams this weekend that had less than 70 yards of total offense. Let's see. North American had 65. MSU Northern had 69. So I know at least the Knights of Kentucky Christian and St. Andrews both had a little bit more than that. Homecomings. How about another homecoming? Let's do this one. This at Florida Memorial, 34. Weber International, 29. Florida Memorial needs to keep winning and have a couple more things go their way in the Sun Conference. It's going to be a big, big ask there. But Frank Bentley, 3 catches, 41 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. He had the game-winning touchdown reception in the fourth quarter. The Lions with a 34-29 victory. The Franciscan Bowl for the 6th consecutive time goes to Marion. And the Knights led by Zach Bundelow once again. 11 for 19 passing, 120 yards through the air, 2 passing touchdowns. He did have a pick, though. 5 carries for a net -1 yard. Doesn't matter. He had a 1 rushing touchdown as well. And for Bundelow, hang on, let's go back to his numbers in a little bit. 2 other players with 100 yards rushing on the day. Keegan LaBelle with 105 rushing yards and William Gibson 100 rushing yards on the day. But back to Bundelow, 65 career touchdown passes now, and that's an amazing, amazing mark. He is second all-time in total offense, which is passing yards and rushing yards. 6,483 of those after Saturday's contest, puts him at number 2 on the list. Here's one that he's on the top of. Passing yards total, 7,692 passing yards for his career at Marion. He leads that list for the Knights, and what a very, very strong list that is. He successfully got his name at the top of the list with a big outing against Madonna. That was 2 weeks ago. Marion 24, St. Francis 14. I never did give the score. There we go. Marion 24, St. Francis 14. Ottawa, let's go back to the KCAC. Ottawa 55, Sterling 17. Ottawa's Jaden Johnson, 6 catches for 89 yards. He had 2 receiving touchdowns on the day. Braves with a big win. Mayville 20, Waldorf 7. We didn't have this one picked, and the Comets come away with a good game. Tim Salmon, by the way, not the numbers that he put up last year, but still 6 for 12, 50% passing, 93 passing yards, 1 touchdown, had a pick, had 13 carries for 45 yards as well, 1 rushing touchdown. And Mason Ullman for the Comets, 23 carries. He hits the century mark, even 100, and a rushing touchdown too. Mayville State, the Comets get the win. Another homecoming. This one is in Sioux City. Briar Cliff gets the win. 21-17 over Dakota Wesleyan. The Tigers have now dropped 2 games in a row. They're 5-3. This score was 0-0 at the half. You have to think, if does either one of these teams want to win? 17 points in the third quarter and then 21 points in the fourth quarter. Brock Saya, 19 for 35 passing, 200 yards, even 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Had a 9-yard pass to Aaron Okoro, the game-winning touchdown pass with 31 seconds left, and Briar Cliff wins at home. By the way, that final drive included a couple of big catches from Jaden Avery Stowers, who had a career-high 6 receptions, 82 yards on the day. So Briar Cliff, the Chargers get the win. Another homecoming. How about a senior day on top of this? Midland, the Warriors with a 27-10 victory over Doane. Midland led by Tyson Dinkert, a sophomore on senior day. I don't know how that works out. 36 carries. That's how it works out. You just keep on giving him the ball, and he keeps on running. 231 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns as well. That's a career day. He is now past the 1,000-yard mark in rushing yards for his career at Midland. Again, sophomore does it on senior day. McPherson, 28. Bethany, nothing. 2 65-yard touchdowns in this one. One of them was Tristan Zabo to Bryson Kirby. He had 7 catches for 130 yards and that touchdown reception. Nehemiah Figueroa, we haven't called his name in a little while, but it's his 5th interception of the season, and this one was his first interception return for a touchdown. He does it for 65 yards. We're here on Midwest Sportsnet this evening. Thanks again for everybody for watching. We're getting to the top 5. I know I've got about maybe 15 more games to get to before we hit those top 5 performers for the weekend. So please stick around with me because I have to hit a couple of games here I just have to. We talked about them. We made some picks last week, and I have to tell you, I think we only got about half of them right. Lots of upsets, but there were just some good games that we missed. So we'll talk about those. I don't like to talk about the ones I missed as much, but that's all right. Baker 41, Missouri Baptist 17. Please let us know from where you're watching tonight. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, it's continuing to grow, and you can be a part of that. So please subscribe to the channel and let us know. Get in the comment section. Love to get to visit with you all. Baker 41, Missouri Baptist 17. Truman Jules guard 27 for 36, 75% completions on the day, 296 passing yards, 1 touchdown, threw a pick as well. Rashad Graves, 21 carries for 174 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. DeAndre Pruitt, 9 catches, 124 yards receiving for Baker. The Wildcats getting a lot of activity all the way around. He had a receiving touchdown as well. For Missouri Baptist, Blake Kite, we've mentioned his name before, and another big day for him, 18 tackles. Not enough, though, because the Wildcats continue to score. Missouri Baptist continues to struggle first season in the Hart Conference. The Spartans do have 1 win now, so it's a long ways. Hastings over Mount Marty, 45-42. This one's a barn burner. Ken Gay, and we mentioned him last week saying he's quietly just completing those touchdown passes. Here's another big day for Ken Gay. 20 for 40 passing, 50%, 309 passing yards, had 5 touchdowns, but also had 3 interceptions. And we're going to talk about this over the course of the evening tonight too. Those interceptions were big. And the first interception he threw resulted in points 2 plays later. Another interception that he threw was a pick 6. Glo Mendoza, 22-yard pick 6 right there. So the interception's big and actually costly in a 3-point game. Hastings again, 45-42. Ken Gay's passing, though, 26 passing touchdowns for that puts him second in the NAIA. And we're going to go, let's see, we're 17 minutes in. We're going to go to the cough drop now. I talk a lot. I think that's the problem. And Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet would definitely back that up. I do talk a lot. For Mount Marty, on the losing end, we talked about Ken Gay. Jonah Miyasawa, 7 catches, 131 yards receiving. And Rex Ryken, 5 catches, 62 yards. He had 3 touchdown receptions as well. But for Hastings, Carson Kudlacek, 25 for 40 passing. That's 63% there. 308 yards passing. Had 2 touchdowns, no picks. That's big. 13 for 14 rushing. That's right. 13 carries for 14 yards rushing. Doesn't matter. He got them when he needed to. 2 rushing touchdowns. Kudlacek responsible for 4 touchdowns on the day. Hastings with the win. Northwestern gets its 20th consecutive win overall. Regular season, postseason, you name it. The defending national champions have 20 straight wins now, including a 35-14 victory over Dordt. Jalen Gramstead, 20 for 23 passing, 161 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no picks. He was also 15 carries for 64 yards rushing. Connor McQuillan, 16 carries, 46 yards on the ground. Doesn't matter. He hits a big milestone on the day. By the way, he had 2 rushing touchdowns, 7 catches, 74 receiving yards, 1 more touchdown there, 120 all-purpose yards. McQuillan has now become the 7th Northwestern Raider to top the 3,000-yard mark in rushing yards. Congratulations to him. By the way, it was Matt McCarty's 75th win as head coach, too. Roosevelt continuing its farewell to the NAIA Tour, and they may be extending this tour into the playoffs as they are doing what they need to do to get that playoff spot in the Mid-States Midwest. 48-24 over Olivet Nazarene. Roosevelt had 35 straight points put on the board in the third and fourth quarter. That started with a punt block that was returned 40 yards for a touchdown by Dominic Barboza, and then 4 passing touchdowns. Budke to Biddle for 3 of them. Carson Budke, 13 for 26 passing, 288 passing yards, had 4 touchdowns and 1 pick. Jacob Biddle, 3 catches, 76 yards. All 3 of his catches were touchdowns. And Tyler Tenner, we've mentioned his name a few times. He's made that top 5 list a time or two. 22 carries, 135 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Meanwhile, for Olivet Nazarene, Evan Leake, 3 carries, 67 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 6 receptions, 23 yards. He led in both rushing yards and receptions. He also had a punt return for a touchdown from 75 yards out, 160 all-purpose yards on the day. Grandview, 52. Graceland, 13. Graceland still not at full strength. Grandview takes advantage of it, and it's the 47th consecutive regular season win for the Vikings. Jackson Waring, 19 for 25 passing, 292 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. By the way, that pick is just the 3rd interception that Waring has thrown this season. Has a passing efficiency rating of 215.1. That is tops in the NAIA by a pretty solid margin. The only one over 200. Tyler Vitsum, 11 carries, 41 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns. Avery Gates, 11 carries, 47 yards on the ground, a rushing touchdown. 9 catches and 140 yards receiving as well. Another receiving touchdown. For Graceland, Cade Ross, he's getting it done. 23 for 50, 270 yards passing, had 2 touchdowns, but also had 2 interceptions on the day, and those interceptions, they were costly. 27 passing touchdowns. That's good enough for tops in the NAIA. Cade Ross is right there. Bethel, 20. Southwestern, 13. The Threshers continuing to turn things around after a little bit of hiccup early on. Southwestern now has dropped consecutive games, and they are in a predicament in the Kessinger division of the KCAC now with those 2 losses. It's going to be a challenge for the Mound Builders at this point in the year. 3 games remaining, though. DJ Sears led the way for Bethel. 15 for 26 for 151 yards passing. It's not something we've seen from Sears too much this year. We've seen making up ground on the ground. 22 carries for 100 yards rushing. No rushing touchdowns. 2 passing touchdowns. Had 2 picks as well. For Bethel, Mario Quintero, 3 catches for 51 yards, a receiving touchdown, including a 41-yard receiving touchdown, the game winner with 4:46 remaining. For Southwestern, a freshman with his first start at quarterback, Christian Burke, in for Braden Howell, 24 for 51 passing at 225 passing yards, no touchdowns, an interception, and Bethel comes away with the win. Oklahoma Panhandle, 44. Texas College, 32. Brandon Stevens, 12 carries, 113 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. CJ Campbell, 21 carries, 108 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns for the Aggies, who pick up the Sooner Athletic Conference win. It was homecoming at Langston. And the Lions with a 51-20 win over the Buffaloes from Arkansas Baptist. 555 yards of total offense for Langston, 6 touchdown passes, and 3 different players threw a touchdown pass in this game for Langston. One of them, of course, Torrance Bardell, who's been leading the way much of the latter portion of the season. 12 for 19 passing, 227 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 12 of 18 rushing, 1 more rushing touchdown. He was responsible for 4 TDs on the day. Kevin Allen Jr., 4 catches, 67 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Levon Williams, 6 catches, 82 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns for him. Southern Oregon, 42, MSU Northern, 13. We already mentioned that MSU Northern didn't move the ball very well. Just 69 yards of total offense on the day. Still enough to get 13 points on the board, which is really saying something when you think about that. Blake Asiuto, 18 for 32 passing, 266 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, had 2 picks. Moku Noah, 6 catches for 156 yards, had a receiving touchdown, that a 72-yard variety. He had, and this is a big game, obviously the season high for Noah, 6 catches, 156 yards on the day. For the season prior, in the first 6 games, he had 5 catches total for 182 yards, so a big day for Noah for Southern Oregon. And by the way, the Raiders continuing to get things going here in the second part of the season. I really think that Southern Oregon is going to trip up someone along the way. It just depends on what the remainder of the schedule looks like. We'll talk about that on Thursday. Peru State lost its first 4 games of the season, has won 4 straight since then, 24-13 over William Penn. Keon Henry Brooks, 23 carries, 189 yards rushing, 1 rushing touchdown. Jordan Kemp, he's been in our top 5 before, not tonight, had 4 catches for 44 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, 12 receiving touchdowns on the year. That's tops in the NAI. 6 straight games for Kemp with at least 1 receiving touchdown. He's also had 2 punt returns for touchdowns as well this year, so he's had 14. All right, let's get to the game that that Jake either wants to or doesn't want to talk about, depending upon, well, we'll just go to the game. Evangel, 20. Friends, 11. We picked this one wrong. And I shouldn't have. I should not have done that. So my apologies to the Valor fans there, because Evangel at home has done well. And the defense showed up. And my thought on this was that, if you're going to this game, you show up in Nixa, Missouri, as the folks in Missouri say. You show up in Nixa, Missouri, and you're expecting to see a KCAC game, and a Frontier Conference game breaks out. 20-11, the final in this one. Friends have been putting up 400-plus yards of rushing per contest, held to only 289 yards. We'll get to that in just a moment. The Evangel defense not only steps up, but shows out in this one. 5 forced fumbles on the night. And as Jake said at the outset of this broadcast, you cannot win championships if you fumble the ball. And Friends fumble the ball not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, 5 times on the night. And you're going to have a 9-point loss at minimum. And actually, that is a little bit deceiving. Friends' final 8 points comes in the final few minutes of the game. I think it was in the last 2 minutes. Baker with a rushing touchdown. Baker, by the way, 21 carries for 151 yards. Cavante Baker for Friends. Normally we mention the winner first. We'll get to that because I want to give that a little bit more time. He was 0 for 1 passing. Friends was 0 for 1 passing. So not just Baker. There were no passing yards in this game. 289 rushing yards for Friends. You expect that, but you expect the number for total offense maybe to be a little bit more than 289. It was only 289. So that's the key right there. By the way, Evangel, let's talk about the winners in this one. And okay, well, Jake has he knows what was responsible for the 5 fumbles and the Evangel win. So it was a great field. I don't know. Anyway, I'll be there. I know for sure the next time I'll be in Springfield will be, I know, November 18th. 18th, I think. So that's a definite. Be going through Springfield there for sure. We'll see. How about Evangel? R.J. Wakely, 11 for 17 passing, 118 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. Again, that was big this weekend. 10 carries for 67 rushing yards. Dylan Hester, 5 catches for 55 yards, had 1 receiving touchdown, 153 all-time receptions for Dylan Hester, and he is now the program leader for the Valor. So congratulations to Dylan Hester and to Evangel, holding Friends in the way that the Valor did in this game. It was a huge victory. I mean, it really was. And so now in the Kessinger division, you're looking at Evangel up there near the top, Bethel up there near the top. I know that Corey has something over on NAIA Football with some of the playoff possibilities. We're going to talk about those, not just on Thursday night, but over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks. And we will have the forum back on a little bit later on. We'll get to talk to Corey and Vince and James or Adam, someone down there from the Champion Sports Network as well, and talk some NAIA football playoff possibilities. In the meantime, Evangel on the road next week at McPherson. It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one, but Evangel with, I believe, this ties the best start in program history. Move the cough drop around a little bit. If you're an Evangel fan, and we did have some Valor fans on last week, let me know. I think it was either 7-0 or 8-0. So it's up there. It's a very good start. One way or the other, 8-0 for Evangel. Let's move on. St. Thomas, 73. Ave Maria, 10. We said on Thursday that Ave Maria would keep this one close. We were completely wrong. Absolutely. St. Thomas scored with 3 passing touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns, 1 field goal, 1 fumble return for a touchdown. I think there was a punt return in there as well, too. Rontavious Farmer, 20 carries for 164 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns. And they held Brian Steinke, did the Bobcats, just 25 carries, 62 yards, no touchdowns. He had a fumble in the first quarter that was recovered by Nathan Pierre, who took it 9 yards. Then it finds its way into Nicholas Engler's hand, who takes it in. everything went right for St. Thomas. Absolutely everything went right for St. Thomas, 73-10. Kansas Wesleyan 17-14. The Coyotes hold off the Spires. That's really all that we can say about that one. Taylor 54, Madonna 14. Trojans with 520 yards of total offense. Kyle Turinchik, 3 carries, 102 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Got them at the end of the game with a 65-yard and a 34-yard touchdown. Some mop-up duty there. Kaiser 51, Southeastern 21. Kaiser scored the first, and it wasn't this close. Kaiser scored the first 48 points of the game, and the Seahawks were up 48-0 at the end of the third quarter. Jared Meisinger took the bulk of the work like he normally does, 23 carries, 134 yards rushing, 1 rushing touchdown. Andrew Burnett starred in this show, though. 6 carries, half of them for touchdowns. 148 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. And Wendell Fuller Jr. just continues to get things done. His 3rd touchdown of the season, non-offense touchdown of the season. For Fuller Jr., 37 yards. It was a pick 6. So far this year, he's had a punt return for a touchdown, a kickoff return for a touchdown, and now an interception return for a touchdown. So Football 45 says, hey, it was a tough loss this weekend. Louisiana Christian fought hard. They did. But it was a little bit too much OUAZ. Ottawa, 27. Louisiana Christian, 24. We had this as one of the top games in 2023 back in the preseason, and it proved to be just that. A top game this year. 27-24. The defense was strong in the fourth quarter, specifically for the Spirit. In the last 3 drives of the game, got an interception on a pass from the punter on 4th and 5, forced another punt after that, and then finally, as Louisiana Christian was driving on its 3rd possession in the fourth quarter, forced a turnover on downs as the Wildcats got 9 yards when they needed 10, and the OUAZ defense was just enough to hold on. Luke Giron, 18 for 26 passing, 240 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 7 for 53 rushing. Sal Palermo, 22 of 33 passing for 174 yards, almost enough. 2 passing touchdowns, no picks, 11 carries, -6 yards, doesn't matter. That was a net total. He had 1 rushing touchdown as well. Both teams were getting into the opponent's backfields. Louisiana Christian, 12 tackles for loss. OUAZ, 13 tackles for loss. It was just enough, though, for the Spirit, and they stick around with an opportunity still now to be in the hunt for that Sooner Athletic Conference automatic bid. One more before we get to the top 5. Montana Western, 34. Arizona Christian, 30. And Arizona Christian, this is when Tyler Duncan plays in Glendale. It is generally a big day. Either one of these 2 quarterbacks could have been in the top 5, Tyler Duncan especially. But let's talk about Missouri Western. Up 13-10 at the half, and then the teams just traded touchdowns from there on out. 28 points in the fourth quarter. Michael Palandri, 18 for 29 passing, 266 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, didn't throw an interception, 9 carries for 65 yards, had a rushing touchdown as well. How about the other quarterback, Tyler Duncan? He's on his own stomping grounds, and he did just that, 24 for 38, stomped around through 319 yards worth of passing, 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, and he stomped on in 8 carries for 51 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns as well. And let's highlight a couple of receivers while we're here. Eli Norse, 10 receptions, 101 yards receiving, 1 catch for a touchdown. Arizona Christian, Chase Tompkins, 8 catches, 149 yards receiving, and 1 receiving touchdown, which we now have gotten to our top 5 performers. Top 5 performances for the weekend. Let's look at it. Let's give you just time to think about it. Let me remind you too, thank you for watching tonight. It really does mean a lot. I'm grateful to get to visit with you all each Sunday or whenever you happen to be watching this. So please subscribe to the channel. Tell a friend. That would be cool. Jake always tells a friend. I appreciate that, Jake. Thank you very much. And support the channel, too. Your support really does help. Had enough time to think about it, who you think is in the top 5? Let's post that up there. All right. Big games for each one of these young men. And let's talk about them really quickly. St. Francis over St. Ambrose, 55-0. And it was Carl Bew in for Sam Tumulty, the freshman, 13 for 21, 311 yards passing, 5 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. Threw 3 of them to Joey Tumulty, by the way. Had 4 catches for 101 yards receiving. If you have 4 catches and 3 of them for touchdowns, it's a good night. By the way, the St. Francis defense, 4 sacks, 3 interceptions on the day. Keemon Reese with 18 tackles for the Fighting Saints. And Carl Bew makes it into our list of the top 5 performances for the week. Pikeville over Bluefield, 51-42. These two teams combined for 1,031 yards of total offense. Lee Kirkland led the way for his team, 26 for 34 passing, 306 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns on the day. He had 4 carries for 25 yards rushing. He has 19 passing touchdowns, by the way, on the season. I know it's not a season-long thing, but he has 19. That's tied for 9th in the NAIA with only 3 interceptions. Let me say that again. Only 3 interceptions. Those are some big, big numbers for passing touchdowns. But here's where it makes a difference. He didn't have any interceptions. You look on the other side of the ball, Nathan Hurstich, who, by the way, is leading the NAIA and has brought that number up this week with his passing yards. Hurstich, 25 for 47 passing, 408 yards passing. That's the high for the day. 4 passing touchdowns. That matches what Kirkland did, but he had 2 interceptions as well. But wait, there's more. 12 carries for 50 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns. He was responsible for 6 on the day, but the interceptions were big. And why do we talk about the interceptions? We've been talking about that all night tonight. Both of the interceptions that Hurstich threw resulted in Pikeville points. So there's 6 touchdowns he's responsible for. Knock off 2 of them because they were countered by those 2 interceptions. One came early in the game, and right after the interception, it's going to be a Pikeville drive. Here's your 6 points on the board. The other one, though, was big. This was as Bluefield was driving. They trailed by 8 points at that point in time. I believe it was 44-36. I want to say 44-36. Trailed by 8 points at that point in time. And driving down the field, Hurstich leading the way. Pick 6 by Obi Wilson goes 56 yards for the score with 1 minute and 4 seconds left. And that was enough to give Pikeville the lead. Now, Bluefield actually did put 1 more touchdown on the board, missed extra point attempt after that. Those interceptions were big. Kirkland had a clean sheet. 4 touchdowns passing, no interceptions, had some yards on the ground as well. By the way, Hurstich, just to give a couple more numbers, his 331 yards passing tops in the NAIA. 21 passing touchdowns, 6th in the NAIA. But the 10 interceptions for Hurstich is also tied for 2nd in the NAIA at the high mark, and that's a number you don't want to have as a high mark. So Lee Kirkland, for the 3rd time this season, really I think 3rd time in 4 weeks, he is in our top 5 performers. Rocky Mountain, 28, Montana Tech, 21, Rocky Mountain 12, 21-7, and then the Battlin Bears scored 21 unanswered, led by Graydon Buell, 22 of 40 passing, 265 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, no picks. 14 carries, 135 yards on the ground, 1 rushing touchdown. Buell responsible for 400 yards of total offense. 400 yards of total offense for Buell. And Rocky Mountain had only 441 yards of total offense for the game. Buell with a huge, huge game. He also had some help from De Niro Killian Jr., who caught 5 of his passes for 52 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Joseph Dwyer all the way, 6 catches, 124 yards receiving. By the way, for Montana Tech, Blake Thielen, pretty good game, 16 for 31 passing, 269 yards. He just had 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Graydon Buell, again, 400 yards of total offense, responsible for 4 touchdowns on the day. College of Idaho over Carroll. And, you know, we try to show a clip to talk about the good things that we mentioned over the course of the week. So we'll see if, and again, I'm not going to talk about all the bad things, but occasionally we get one right. If Las Vegas had odds and lines on some of these NAIA games, I would go as far down as if the over-under were 44.5, I'd still take the under in this game. And even with that, we're going to go with College of Idaho. So we're picking College of Idaho. Andy Peters leads the way in a very tight contest, a very big win. Jack Perka can keep his team in it, but College of Idaho to try to give the Saints their first loss of the season. Another impact game. Cumberland's 5-2. Lindsey Wilson 5-1. Top of the Mid-South Conference, and a lot on the line in this one. Lindsey Wilson has won 7 of 9 all-time in the series. I know that there are no spreads, point spreads, or anything like that. Maybe it's something we should think about. But you look at this game, and this game had the feel of what we thought the Friends Evangel game was going to be. And Friends Evangel comes away as a Frontier Conference game. So, I mean, switch those two out, and you've got a good contest. Anyway, around, Andy Peters led the way for his team. We thought that Peters would be the X factor in this game, and he was. 19 for 33 passing, 278 passing yards, threw 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was had 15 carries for 81 yards on the ground, 1 rushing touchdown as well. Andy Peters was the X factor. Had some help from John Krebs, 4 catches, 110 yards receiving, 2 receiving touchdowns. John Schofield got into the mix, 4 catches, 51 yards receiving, 1 receiving touchdown. By the way, Brock Richardson had 9 catches on the day, didn't cross the goal line, but he had 107 yards receiving as well. So Andy Peters leads College of Idaho to give the Carroll Saints their first loss of the season. And it is now interesting at the top of the Frontier Conference with College of Idaho, with Carroll, with Montana Western as well. A lot going on up there. We'll talk about that more on Thursday night. Finally, we haven't mentioned Adrian Parsons' name in a while, and maybe he just needed to be mentioned. Maybe he just wanted to turn things around for his team. MidAmerica Nazarene had a loss last week, but still, this is a Pioneer team that wants to be playing for meaningful games in November, and that is what they're putting themselves in a position to do. And by the way, it was another homecoming game because we had to mention homecoming. MidAmerica Nazarene 59, Central Methodist 12. The Pioneers with 706 yards of total offense. That's the high for the weekend. And led by Adrian Parsons. 22 for 27 passing. 310 passing yards. 4 touchdowns. Had a pick. 6 carries for 106 yards rushing. And 1 touchdown, which, by the way, went for 61 yards. At that point, it made it 38-3. And it capped a 38-point run. That 61-yard rushing touchdown was huge in that game, and it was MidAmerica, all MidAmerica all the time. And so they come away with a 59-12 win. By the way, Parsons, as all these quarterbacks do, got by with a little help from their friends. Arlandis Mitchell, again, 8 catches, 109 yards receiving. E.J. Rogers, 4 catches, 87 yards receiving, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Sean Cherry on the ground, 12 carries, 121 yards rushing, and 2 rushing touchdowns. So our top 5 performers for this weekend: Carl Bew, Lee Kirkland, Graydon Buell, Andy Peters, and Adrian Parsons. Congratulations to all of those players. They had big contests this week. All came away helping their team win. There are just 3 weeks remaining in the NAIA regular season. A lot more football to be played. There are some big matchups coming up this weekend as well. We alluded to one with Morningside and Northwestern. That's a big one, but we're going to talk about a few more on Thursday night. And we should have a couple of interviews here on the channel this week as well. It's going to be a fun week on the channel. I just encourage you, please be a part of everything that's going on here. I enjoy visiting with you. I hope you have a good time getting to hear about your favorite small college teams. Most of you now, I'm starting to get an idea of who some of your favorite teams are. But if you're new to the channel, let me know. Let me know from where you're watching, and just keep on coming back. Please continue to enjoy the videos here on Midwest Sports Net because we enjoy putting them out there. We love talking about small college sports throughout the Midwest and beyond. So for sure, on Thursday night at 8 p.m., we will preview Week 9 of the NAIA football schedule. And again, there should be a couple more interviews this week on the channel. And yeah, well, Bobby, I do talk about, if you're talking about Louisiana Christian, we definitely talk about Louisiana Christian here on the channel. Definitely want to talk about Coach Maddox and his team because we enjoy it. We really do. And we've been pushing Louisiana Christian. By the way, and I know that you're not going to hear about all of the polls, but Wildcats still in the top 25 in my poll. So there we go. All right. Well, if there is nothing else, we'll go ahead and wrap it up tonight. I want to say thanks to everybody for watching. So be sure, for sure, Thursday night at 8 o'clock. So yes, that's a yes. Oh, my goodness. Well, Bobby, if you're just now tuning in, go back because we do talk about Louisiana Christian right here on the channel. And we do it, and we're going to do it next week as well. It's going to be a big matchup in week 11, Louisiana Christian and Texas Wesleyan. But everybody has to do their part to get to that point. All right. Thanks again for watching. God bless you all. Have a great, great night, and I will see you later.